What if I told you that the person who keeps destroying your happiness is you, not your friends, not your enemies, not the people who hurt you, you? And here's the terrifying part. You don't even know you're doing it. You work so hard to build a good life. You try to be successful. You try to love. You try to be better. But every time you get close to something real, something good, you sabotage it. You push it away. You burn it down. And then you lie to yourself. You say, it wasn't meant to be. Or, I'm just unlucky. But deep down, you know, this is a pattern. You've been here before. You've lost before. You've ruined things before. And you're terrified because you don't know how to stop. But here's the truth. You are not broken. You are programmed. Somewhere in your past. In those forgotten years when your mind was soft and open. Something wrote the script for your life. It told you how much you're worth. It told you what love feels like. It told you what pain is. And it convinced you that you deserve it. And now, you're just following the script. Blindly. Faithfully. Even when it destroys you. So ask yourself, why do you chase people who hurt you? Why do you ruin good opportunities? Why do you stay stuck in a life you secretly hate? It's not because you're weak. It's because your mind has become your cage. But what if I told you there's a way out? What if I told you that the same mind that's been sabotaging you can be rewired, reprogrammed to set you free? This isn't just another motivational speech. This is an unmasking. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly who your enemy is. You'll know where they hide. And most importantly, you'll know how to take your power back. Because the truth is chilling. Your worst enemy isn't outside. It's been living inside you all along. And tonight, we're going to drag it into the light. Let's strip away the excuses. Self-sabotage is not random. It's not bad luck. It's not the universe testing you. It's you, but not the you see in the mirror. It's the deeper, hidden version of you, the one that lives in the shadows of your subconscious. You see, your mind has two layers. The conscious, the part that dreams big, that wants to succeed, that tells you, I deserve better. And then there's the subconscious, the part that whispers, no, you don't. Guess which one wins? Every time. That voice in your subconscious isn't some evil spirit. It's a program. A script written when you were too young to know what was happening. When your parents yelled. When they ignored you. When you were told you're too much or you're not enough. When love felt like pain or it came with conditions. Your brain recorded it all. And then it built a belief system around it. I am not worthy. I can't trust people. I don't deserve happiness. You didn't choose these beliefs. They were given to you, gift wrapped in pain. And now, you live by them without even knowing it. That's why you ruin good relationships. Because deep down, love feels unsafe. That's why you procrastinate and destroy your opportunities. Because deep down, success feels dangerous. That's why you stay stuck in cycles of misery. Because deep down, you believe you deserve it. Self-sabotage isn't weakness. It's protection. Twisted, broken protection. Your mind thinks it's keeping you safe by pulling you back into the familiar, even if that familiar is toxic, even if that familiar is killing you. And this is why you can't think your way out of it. Positive affirmations don't work when your subconscious is programmed against them. You can't just say, I am worthy, while the deepest part of you is screaming, you are not. So you stay trapped, smiling on the outside, bleeding on the inside. But here's the haunting truth. If your mind was programmed once, it can be programmed again. You can rewrite the script. You can tear down the prison walls. But only if you have the courage to face the part of you that's been hiding in the dark. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Because before you can heal, you have to meet the enemy. Ask yourself this. When did you first learn to doubt yourself? When did you first feel unworthy? It didn't happen yesterday. It didn't even start last year. It began long before you had words for it. We like to think our choices are made by the rational, grown-up version of us. But science and psychology say otherwise. By the age of 7, your brain has already formed the majority of its core beliefs. 7, that's when your subconscious programming was set. And who wrote that programming? your parents, your caregivers, your culture, every smile you got, and every cold shoulder, every good job, and every why can't you be better? Imagine your young mind as a sponge. It soaked up everything, not just the words, but the tone, not just the actions, but the silences. When you cried, did someone come to comfort you? Or did you learn that crying meant being ignored, or worse, punished? When you succeeded, did they celebrate you? Or did you learn that achievement is the only path to love? Every single one of those moments carved deep grooves into your subconscious. You built beliefs around them, beliefs about who you are, beliefs about what you deserve. And once those beliefs were formed, they became law. Unquestioned, unchallenged, unseen. So now, when you try to love yourself, that old program says, no, you're not lovable. When you try to take risks, it whispers, no, you'll fail. When you try to trust people, it shouts, don't, they'll hurt you like last time. You think it's you. You think this voice is your truth. But it's not truth. It's programming. Here's the twisted part. Your brain doesn't want to change it. It loves what's familiar, even if that familiar is pain. That's why you keep ending up in the same kinds of relationships, the same failures, the same heartbreak. It's not coincidence. It's not bad luck. It's your subconscious pulling you back to what it knows. You've been living on autopilot, a puppet on strings pulled by beliefs you didn't choose. And every time you try to break free, that voice pulls you back. Because in your subconscious, change equals danger. But here's what most people never hear. The mind can be rewired. It can be taught new beliefs. It can unlearn the lies you've been living. But first, you have to dig deep. You have to be willing to face the memories you've buried, the pain you've avoided, the real story of who you became and why. Because until you know where the programming came from, you'll never know how to change it. Here's a question most people don't want to face. Why do we hold on to pain? Why do we keep choosing situations that break us over and over again? It doesn't make sense, does it? Why would anyone choose misery? Why would anyone stay in relationships that hurt, jobs that destroy their soul, habits that slowly kill them? But here's the dark truth. Your brain has made pain home. Sounds strange? Let me explain. When you lived a certain way for long enough, anxious, rejected, ashamed, your mind starts treating that state as normal. It's what feels familiar. And the human brain, it craves familiarity more than it craves happiness. You'd think your brain's highest priority is joy. It's not. It's survival. And survival doesn't care if you're happy. It just wants you to stay in familiar patterns because familiar means safe, even if it's killing you slowly. That's why someone who grew up in chaos often finds themselves drawn to chaotic partners. Why a person raised in neglect ends up with people who neglect them. It's not weakness. It's programming. It's your subconscious trying to recreate what it knows. It's why leaving pain behind feels terrifying to your brain. Stepping into the unknown is more dangerous than staying in misery. At least misery is predictable. And so you cling to the very things that break you. You tell yourself, this is just who I am. You justify the suffering. Maybe this is all I deserve. But what you're really doing is living in a prison with the door wide open. A prison built from old beliefs. A prison where pain feels safer than freedom. And until you see that, until you recognize that your comfort zone is actually your cage, you'll stay stuck. Here's the haunting part. Pain isn't just something you experience. It becomes part of your identity. When you've been broken for so long, you start to think, this is me, this is my story. You can't imagine a life without that suffering because it's all you've known. But let me ask you, who would you be without your pain? Who would you become if you stopped carrying the weight of what they did to you, of what you did to yourself? That question scares people because real freedom requires facing the unknown. It requires stepping away from the familiar patterns, the comfort misery, and daring to believe in something better. And that's the moment most people walk away. They'd rather live with the pain they know than risk the life they don't. But you're still here, listening, which means part of you is ready to break the cycle. And that's where transformation begins. Here's a hard truth. Most of the pain you carry doesn't come from what's happening now. It comes from the stories you keep telling yourself. Think about it. You're not just living in the present. You're living in your past, replaying every wound, every betrayal, every failure like a broken record. You're living in the future, imagining every possible disaster before it even arrives. And somewhere in between, you've lost sight of reality. Your mind has created an illusion, and you're trapped inside it. What illusion? The illusion that you are powerless. The illusion that you're defined by what happened to you. The illusion that life is happening to you, not through you. This illusion has been built brick by brick since childhood. Each time you were hurt, your mind added a new layer. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve love. I can't trust anyone. Each disappointment carved the belief deeper. Each failure solidified the lie. And now, you don't even question it. You look in the mirror and you don't see yourself. You see a distorted reflection, a version of you shaped by pain, fear, and shame, a false identity built on wounds. And here's the cruel trick. That identity feels real. It feels so real that you'd swear it's the truth. But what if it isn't? What if you are not the failure your mind says you are? What if you are not the broken person your pain wants you to believe in? What if the only thing keeping you stuck is believing the lies your subconscious keeps feeding you? Here's a psychological fact. Your brain cannot tell the difference between what is vividly imagined and what is real. If you repeat a lie to yourself long enough, I'm unworthy, I'll always fail, nothing will ever change, your mind accepts it as fact, and you live as if it's true. This is why you feel powerless. Not because you are powerless, but because you've been convinced that you are. This is where the work begins. You can't break free for what you refuse to see. You can't escape the prison if you won't admit you're locked inside. It takes brutal honesty to face yourself, to stop blaming the world, the past, even luck, and start asking, what am I believing that isn't true? What story am I telling myself that keeps me chained to this pain? When you start asking those questions, the illusion cracks. And for the first time, you glimpse something terrifying and liberating. You are not your thoughts. You are not your pain. You are not the false identity your subconscious created. You are something greater. But here's the catch. Seeing the truth isn't enough, because knowing you're in a prison doesn't set you free. To break out, you'll need to take action. The kind of action your old self will fight with everything it has. And that's where we're headed next. Here's a secret no one likes to talk about. The biggest battle you'll ever fight is with yourself, not with your enemies, not with your circumstances, not even with your past. It's with the part of you that refuses to change. Sounds strange, doesn't it? Why would you fight yourself? Because the version of you that's been living in pain doesn't want to die. Your old self, the one built on lies, fear, and survival, is comfortable in the chaos. It knows how to suffer. It knows how to blame. It knows how to stay small. And the moment you try to break free, that old self panics. It whispers, don't do it. It's too risky. You'll get hurt again. You don't deserve better. It clings to familiar because, to your subconscious, familiar equals safe, even if that safe is killing you slowly. This is the war within, a tug of war between the part of you that wants to grow and the part of you terrified of who you might become. Let's get brutally honest. That fear you feel every time you try to change, it's not fear of failure. It's fear of losing the identity you've been carrying for years. It's fear of stepping into the unknown. Your old self wants you to believe that change will destroy you. But here's the truth. Change doesn't destroy you. It destroys the prison you've been living in. Psychologists call this the ego death. When the self-image you clung to begins to crumble, it feels like dying, but it's actually the beginning of living. But let's be real. This battle isn't clean. You will fight yourself. You will sabotage yourself. You will try to run back to what's familiar because it feels safe in becoming someone new. And in those moments, you'll need to remind yourself, fear is not a sign you're failing. Fear is a sign you're moving in the right direction. Because every time you step toward freedom, your old self will scream louder. It will pull every trick in the book to drag you back. Procrastination, overthinking, addictions. toxic relationships, not because you're weak, but because your subconscious wants to protect the old you at all costs. So, how do you win this war? You don't fight with anger. You don't fight by punishing yourself. You fight by understanding that this old self was created to protect you. It was built in the chaos of your past. It helped you survive when you had no choice. But now, you do have a choice. You can thank the old self for helping you survive, and then let it go. This is not just about change. It's about rebirth. And make no mistake, rebirth is messy. It's painful. It feels like everything is falling apart. But what's really happening? Everything that kept you stuck is crumbling. And when the dust clears, you'll meet someone you've never truly known. The real you. Here's a hard truth. You can't just erase the old self. You have to replace it. When people fail at change, it's usually because they try to stop being who they are, but they don't create someone new to take that place. Nature hates a vacuum. If you don't rewrite your story, the old one comes back stronger. This is where the real work begins. Not just surviving, but becoming. Ask yourself, who are you when the pain is gone? Who are you when you're no longer trapped by fear, guilt, or shame? If you can't answer that, you'll fall back into the old patterns. Not because you want it, but because it's all you know. Psychologists call this identity reconstruction. It's a process of consciously designing the person you want to be, instead of unconsciously living out the person you were told to be. And it's terrifying, because it means taking full responsibility for your future. No more blaming. No more waiting for someone to save you. But here's the reward. You get to decide who you are for the first time in your life. Start small. Instead of saying, I want to be happy, define it. What does happiness actually look like for you? What kind of people do you surround yourself with? How do you treat yourself? What do you tolerate? Then begin embodying that version of you. Today, not when you're ready, not when the pain is gone, but now. You won't believe how fast your brain starts to adapt when you act like the person you want to become. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. Your brain literally rewiring itself based on your choices, thoughts, and behaviors. But let's not sugarcoat it. Rebuilding yourself isn't pretty. You will fail. You will slip back into old habits. You will feel like a fraud sometimes. And that's okay, because you're not building a perfect identity. You're building a real one. One choice at a time. One boundary at a time. One act of courage at a time. And over time, the old self that once felt so permanent, it fades. It loses its grip. It stops being who you are and becomes just a story you once lived. This is where true freedom begins. When your identity is no longer chained to your past. When your choices aren't just reactions to old wounds. When you finally meet yourself. The you that was buried under years of pain, fear, and survival. You've been surviving for so long. Now it's time to live. There is a moment, a quiet, terrifying moment, when you can no longer blame anyone else for your life. Not your parents, not your ex, not your boss, not even fate. It's the moment when you realize, this is my life, and it's my responsibility. Asterisk, asterisk. That realization can feel like being hit by a freight train. Because if everything you become is your responsibility, then so is everything you will become. Psychologists call this radical ownership, a concept popularized in therapy and leadership psychology. It means taking full, unfiltered accountability for your emotions, your actions, and your healing. Sound empowering, right? But let's be honest, it's brutal. Because for years, you've been telling yourself a story. A story where you were the victim, where life happened to you. And as much as that story has hurt you, it's also protected you. It gave you someone to blame. It gave you a reason to stay stuck. But here's the twist. That story also kept you powerless. If your pain is always someone else's fault, then your healing will always be someone else's responsibility. And that is the most dangerous trap of all. Radical ownership shatters that illusion. It forces you to see the ugly truth. You may not be responsible for everything that happened to you, but you are responsible for what you do next. Asterisk, asterisk. That means no more waiting for apologies that may never come. No more hoping the world changes before you can live fully. No more letting your past dictate your future. This isn't about self-blame. It's about self-liberation. Because the moment you claim ownership, you claim control. Think of it like this. You've been sitting in a locked room your whole life, screaming for someone to open the door. Then one day, you realize the key has been in your hand the entire time. Taking ownership is turning that key. It doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't make the past fair. But it gives you the one thing you've been chasing all along. Power. The power to rewrite your story. The power to set boundaries. The power to choose what kind of life you want from this moment on. Yes, it's heavy. Yes, it's terrifying. But it's also the doorway to freedom. Because when you own your pain, you also own your healing. And in that ownership, you stop being a victim of your story and start becoming the author of it. Why do we keep walking into the same fire, even when we know it burns? You've seen it in your life. Maybe you keep dating the same type of person who hurts you. Maybe you sabotage every opportunity that could change your future. Maybe you keep quiet when you need to speak up because you fear rocking the boat. And every time you tell yourself, this time will be different. But it never is. Why? Because your brain is not wired for freedom. It's wired for familiarity. Neuroscience has proven something chilling. Your brain loves patterns, even the painful ones. If you grew up believing you weren't enough, your mind will unconsciously seek situations that confirm it. It's not betrayal. It's programming. Psychologists call this repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate old wounds, hoping for a different ending. But here's the dark twist. The ending rarely changes. The pain just deepens. And until you see the pattern, you'll keep living it. It's like walking through a labyrinth blindfolded, hitting the same walls again and again, because you don't realize you're in a maze. But here's the hope. Patterns can be broken. The first step? Awareness. You can't fight what you can't see. So you have to start asking yourself, why do I keep ending up here? Whose voice am I still obeying? Is this choice mine, or is it my past living through me? This is where inner work begins. Therapists often use inner child work for this very reason. Because the person making those choices isn't the adult you, it's the younger you, the one who learned to survive by repeating the same behaviors. And the younger you doesn't need punishment. They need understanding. When you start listening to that inner voice, not to obey it, but to question it, you start loosening the grip of the pattern. But awareness alone isn't enough. You need disruption. This means doing the opposite of what your programming expects. Setting boundaries where you once stayed silent. Walking away when you used to cling. Choosing self-respect over approval. At first, it feels unnatural, even wrong, because your brain screams, this isn't safe. But it's not danger, it's growth. And each time you disrupt the pattern, you carve a new pathway in your brain, a path toward freedom. You stop reliving the same story. You start writing a new one. Here's the truth. The cycle doesn't break because life gets easier. It breaks because you decide, I am no longer available for the pain that once defined me. That decision, that's where transformation begins. Imagine for a moment you are standing in front of a mirror, but this isn't just a reflection of your face. It's a reflection of every belief, every wound, every memory that has shaped you. Some of those reflections are comforting, but others, they're haunting. The times you were silenced, the moments you were abandoned, the words that cut so deep, you can still hear them when the room is quiet. For years, you've been trying to outrun them, to outwork them, to outgrow them. But here's the truth. You can't heal what you keep hiding. This is where mastery begins. Not in becoming stronger than your pain, but in finally facing it. Because when you face it, it loses its power to control you. Psychologists call this integration, the process of bringing the fractured parts of yourself back into the light. It's not about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming it. You begin to understand. Those voices that said, you're not enough, weren't yours. Those fears that kept you small weren't truths. They were lessons planted by people who were hurting too. And when you see that clearly, you stop being a prisoner of their pain. But mastery isn't just about awareness. It's about choice. For so long, your choices weren't really yours. They were dictated by programming, by fear, by survival. But now, you stand at a different crossroad. You can keep walking the same road, the one built by old beliefs, or you can choose a new path, one that feels terrifying, but also freeing. This is the moment of transformation, when you realize you are no longer the helpless child. You are the author, the director, the creator of what comes next. And here's the part no one tells you. Freedom doesn't mean you'll never feel pain again. It means you'll finally know what to do with it. Instead of suppressing your emotions, you'll express them. Instead of chasing love where it hurts, you'll build it where it heals. Instead of fearing failure, you'll use it as fuel. This is mastery, not of the world, but of yourself. And once you master yourself, the world around you changes too. Because the people who once controlled you no longer hold the strings. The past that once defined you becomes just a chapter. You stop asking, "Why me?" And you start declaring, "Watch me." This is a shift. The moment you break free from the labyrinth of your mind. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because you finally understood the truth. You were the key all along. And now, it's time to use it.